start already. Oh, okay. Okay, hi. So, welcome to my YouTube channel. Honestly, I don't know what we're doing. Like, basically, it's raining now, and we decided, why not make a YouTube video? Okay, so I'm here with Dan and Josh. Can you all like come in for a bit? Okay, so Dan will be helping me produce, and Josh is my lighting guy. So any LED changes you see, right, is his fault. Yeah. Okay, so this is low budget setup. We are not like sneaky sushi or whatever. Okay. So honestly, right, like. Okay, so without further ado, right, we'll start on the paranormal story. God damn it. Like technical. Okay, we'll start on the paranormal story time. I swear, it's really as funny. It's not. Okay, so we'll start on the paranormal story time. Good job, Josh. Yay! Okay, so this started back in 2018 when I first enlisted to BMT. So I think for the sake of like discretion, I'm not gonna say which coy I was from. I'm just gonna call it like coy A, in case like any of you recruits like post into my coy and then you'll post it out. Okay, so when we were first posted to BMT, we have this thing called the confinement week, where we are not allowed to book out for 2 weeks. This is so that we get like adjusted to the training and like the mentality of army. So in that whole 2 weeks, like, yeah, you just get stuck in camp with like your platoon. So there was this one night, I think the third or fourth night, I was like sleeping. Then for some reason, like I woke up. Like, I didn't need to pee or anything. I just woke up and I was like looking around. So this is the layout of my bunk. Like it's like double-decker beds, then like a common table, then more beds. So I was like somewhere in the middle. So I was like looking around. I was like, and I realized that there was someone sitting at the common table. So I was like looking at the clock. I think it was around 3-4 a.m. And I was thinking like, who the fuck would be like sitting at the common table at this timing? So I was like, and then I looked over at him and I was like, psst, psst, bro, psst. I honestly don't even know what I did there. Like a sane person would just go back to sleep. But I was like, psst, bro, psst. So after that, like this figure like turned back to me. And honestly, I couldn't see it very clearly because I wasn't wearing my specs at that point of time. So after when it turned back to me, like I remember seeing a very muffled vision of a guy. Like I realized I couldn't make out his face. He was like very blurry, like like very glitchy kind of feel. Then I was thinking like, who is this guy? So I was like, psst, why haven't sleep? And this guy, like, he was looking at me. And he just slowly turned away. And I shit you not, right, at that point of time, like the whole room temperature just dropped. Like just went sub-zero real quick. And like you guys know, like BMT bunks, right, it's bloody hot. It's like sauna like that. So like for it to just suddenly like, and I was like, fuck. Like I instantly knew like something was off. So I just like turned to the other side and I was just like, go to sleep. And eventually I did lah, because honestly I was damn shacked out that day. So I went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up and I asked like my bunkmates like, yo, which one of you guys, right, like sat at the common table last night? And they were all like, dude, maybe it's sergeant. Then I was like, oh yeah, because during that confinement period, like our sergeants will come up to our bunks to do like spot checks on us to make sure like we're sleeping at the designated timing, which was like 10:30 sharp. So like no phones, like no talking, just like flat out, just go and sleep. So my sergeant came in and I was like, Sergeant, last night around 3-4 a.m, right, did you come and sit at our common table? And he just looked very blankly at me. He was like, wait, why? Like, you saw someone, is it? And I was like, yeah, like someone was wearing uniform, like sitting at the common table. And like, I was like, who else could it be though? So he just looked at me and he was like, I don't mean to scare you, right, but all of us were watching World Cup that night. So we were all in the office and none of us bothered to spot check you all that night. So, and I was like, fuck. Like if it's not him, like who else would it be? So this is part one of the whole story. Like it will make sense later. So just remember this part. This is a very, very important factor in the whole story. Okay, so another important factor is there was this guy in my section. His name is called John. So basically, he was just a very normal guy lah. Like, there was nothing off about him. But when we first booked out, right, he never booked back in. So when we had our first book out and our first book in, right, we were all like, oh, everyone's here except John. So we were assuming like he had an MC or whatnot, but after a few days we're like, oh wait, he's really not booking back in. And I asked my sergeant like, sergeant, what happened to John? And he was like, it's a bit sensitive. If you guys really want to know, y'all should talk to John. But none of us did because we wanted to give him like space. So John also plays a very, very important factor to the whole story later, which I will go into. Okay, so there was this one night where we booked in and we decided to just fuck the lights out timing. So basically it's where at 10:30 sharp, like everyone's supposed to be asleep. So after 10:30, we all gathered at the common area. We decided to search up ghost stories, So we found some ghost stories that were like quite relevant to my koi. Like it was literally pertaining my koi specifically. So it's about this girl, like this female spirit that loitered the koi lines, like tormenting like recruits like us. So basically the whole story goes about where she gets very angry when people bring in like sweets and stuff. Cause they put it in their locker and then she can't reach it, so she'll get very annoyed. So this correlated to my koi rules where we weren't allowed to bring in like anything that was flavored. So the things we could bring in were like unflavored biscuits, dried fruits and stuff, like strictly like no sweets or whatnot. So we're like, oh, like this is quite accurate. And just nice my friend smuggled in a box of Eclipse. So he threw it in his locker, he locked it, and he was like, oh, if you want my sweet, come and take. And we were all like laughing about it until we got caught by my sergeant. And like he like kind of wrecked us and made us go to sleep. So yeah, that night ended off pretty bad. But basically after we did those stupid shit, like a string of unfortunate events started happening within the span of that 1 week. So we booked in on a Sunday and we were only allowed to book out next Friday, and within that week itself, right, let's just say like a lot of shit went down. So basically the first thing that happened was from a section of 12 guys, right, a lot of stuff started happening to people in my section. Like there was this one guy that got really high fever that he was sent out, this one guy that got injured during training, and this one guy, he had like very, very weird hives over his body in the middle of the night. And we're like, okay. Some stuff that happened in the bunk were that in the middle of the night, like we would hear like lockers getting slammed and stuff. And eerily enough, right, like at around 4 a.m, 3 to 4 a.m. every night, like we would just wake up in the middle of the night. Like one encounter that happened to me, right, was I just woke up for no reason. I started looking around the bunk and I realized that my bunk mates were also sitting up. So I was just like, why are you guys awake? And they were like, and this happened like consistently throughout the whole week. Like different groups of us will wake up together, start looking around and be like, and we didn't need to pee or anything, so that was a very weird part. Like, so throughout the span of that 1 week, a lot of weird shit just started happening. So maybe this was around Friday where we were gonna like book out at night. So we were told to do area cleaning, where like we just clean up our bunk until like the sergeant says it's acceptable, then we're allowed to book out. So at this point of time, from a 12-man bunk, right, we ended up having 6 people only. So when we walked into the bunk to do area cleaning, like we were looking around, so everyone's cleaning their own area, and then I just started like observing the bunk, and I was like, hey guys, you guys realize that we only have 6 guys left? Then everyone was like, oh yeah. And we're like, and we don't have buddy. Cause in a 12-man bunk, each guy has a buddy, so you're supposed to know about his whereabouts at all times. They're supposed to like be responsible for one another. So at this point, like we all didn't have a buddy because our buddy was all sent out due to like unforeseen circumstances. So this was very, very weird. So I was like, alright. So before we booked out, I went to talk to one of my sergeants. So we're just having a very casual chat. And I just told him, Sergeant, our bunk was very, very weird. Like it has this very, very weird vibe. And like a lot of weird things started happening to us, like recently. So he just told me to tell him everything, and I did lah. I just like, oh, like we just started hearing sounds. This guy saw something, blah blah. I just let everything out. And he just told me, okay, can, noted. You go and have a good weekend. I will resolve it. So I was like, okay, thanks man. And sure enough, right, he really did somehow. So when I booked in the next Sunday, so weekends, and I booked in on the Sunday, right, when I entered the bunk, like the bunk just felt very different. Like it looked the same, it was still like the same shitty bunk, but it just felt very different. Like it didn't have this very eerie feeling that it used to have. Like our bunk used to be so eerie, right? To the point where even if you go in like afternoon or like when the sun is up, right, you wouldn't want to be around there for like long periods of time. Like we always end up going to other sections bunks because we just didn't want to be in a bunk. Yeah. So surprisingly enough, right, like the vibe changed, and I was like, hey, like what do you do? So I went to find my sergeant. I was like, hey sergeant, what do you do? Why like the ambience of the bunk changed? Then it's like, oh, basically like him and another sergeant went to do some prayers because they felt like they went into our bunk and they realized what we were talking about. Like they knew something was off and something was there, so they did some prayers and they kind of like warded the spirit away. Okay, so basically our bunk was more or less cleansed and it was not spooky anymore lah. So all was good until 1 week before we POP'd. So me and the guys were just chilling at the common table. Like by this time, right, like all the training was done. We're just waiting to POP. So we were all just like laughing, using our phone, playing MapleStory M. Then out of nowhere, the guy that didn't book back in during the first confinement, he just walked into the bar. He didn't like acknowledge any of us. He just walked in and started packing his duffel bag, which he left behind because he didn't book back in to take. So we were all like, John, what happened to you? Then he told us, a bit sensitive. I'll tell you guys after your POP. Then he just continued packing his stuff. Because at that point of time, I just thought it was a personal matter or something, so we didn't want to pry too much into it. So we just let it be. We just like, oh, okay, take care. Yeah, anything, just text us, okay? So yeah. And this led up to where everything finally made sense. So this was when we POP'd and like, oh yeah, like throw the jockey cap, woo! So after I POP'd, I went to eat with my friends. And I remember while I was eating, like my phone started buzzing like crazy. It was like ding, 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 and I was like, what the fuck? And I looked, it was all from my BMT group. I was like, what are they talking about? I'll check it out later. So I continued eating. Then while I was paying for the meal, right, I was looking through my phone. So my friend was like, yo Kai, what the fuck? You were right. Dude, what the fuck? So I was like, what's going on? So I was like looking through. So this was the contents of the message, which I'll show like screenshots of it, so like you guys know it's legit. So basically, right? The guy, okay, John, basically congratulated us. He was like, okay guys, congratulations on your POP. Sorry I couldn't be there with you guys, but I'm about to tell you guys the reason why I didn't book back in and what happened to me. So everyone was like, ooh, okay. So after we all like listened to him, and he was telling us like, so basically since day one of booking into that camp, he hasn't been able to sleep like properly because every night he saw like this figure at the common table looking straight at him every single night without fail. Okay, so while all of this was happening, right, like he didn't tell a single one of us. So in the whole bunk, right, no one knew except him. So he kind of like suffered silently, which was honestly quite sad. So I think towards the last day, like the day that we were supposed to book out from our confinement, he didn't see the figure. Like around the time that he will usually see the figure, right? He didn't see the figure. So it's like, oh okay, like thank God. Like maybe it's like some adjustment issues or stuff, or maybe he like hallucinated. So he just went to sleep. Then at one point, like he just felt very uneasy, so he woke up and he saw the figure, right, which was usually like a few feet away from him at the common table. This time, right, it was literally at the edge of his bed, like staring directly at him. Then for the first time, he could see the face. So he got very freaked out and like he just broke down. So that's why he never booked back in. Like he just assumed like he had like psychological issues. So going back to the first part of the story, right? You know, like the first spiritual encounter I had with the guy back facing me. Okay, so I give you all a bit of context. So the layout of my bunk, right? So this is my bed, this is the common table, and the guy was sitting here, so like back facing me. And like John's bed was literally like opposite mine. So the spirit that I saw was actually like tormenting like John, not me. I basically like invited myself into something that I wasn't a part of. Like it was tormenting John, but I went to like like fuck. So basically like self-invited myself like into this whole shenanigan. So yeah, this is the gist of the whole story. Like yeah, in the end we all POP lah, no one died, so I guess it's a good ending. Okay, so I guess this is the end of my first YouTube video. Honestly, I don't even know if I'll make more. Like this is just for the lols, lol. So stay tuned or not. Woo. What's that? What do I always say? Subscribe. Comment what was your favorite part of how I'm doing that shit.